perhaps stand up again. So, it's good to see everybody here tonight. Good to have you. Y'all pray for Brother David and Miss Sandra as they travel to Atlanta tonight. She's got a procedure tomorrow, so remember that. Remember all the shut-ins, all the prayer requests we had this morning. The bulletin, I don't have one with me, but it was full. So remember each one of those. There's just so much to pray for, so much flu and that kind of thing going around. But we'll be blessed if we ever get out of this world alive. So, but it's good to have you, and good to have a visit this morning. Someone said those folks came from all the way from Rockmart, Georgia, just to worship with a saw it on YouTube or something. Thomas Cater one time said, we had the tag train. I said, it's worth the drive. So obviously those folks thought it was. But y'all pray for these folks. Appreciate them coming. Brother Gary this morning, I think it was, said this week invite one person to church this week and see what happens next week. So let's do that. Any announcements, prayer requests?
Remember Jill, Micah said that he thinks she may have broken her foot, so remember Jill.
Okay. Remember this. Okay. All right. It's good to see y'all back tonight.
Pray for Landon Reed, who has some tests and doctor appointments coming up. Birmingham still.
Anybody else? No one? Y'all cheer up a little bit. It's going to be all right. If you would, then stand. We're going to ask the ushers to come up. And we're still Baptist. We're going to take up an offering. If we don't get enough the first time, we'll pass it around again. So y'all come on up.
Every neighbor shall know, 'tis
Good to see you tonight. Let's all stand and fellowship a minute as the choir comes down and we'll have Blake come up. choir did good tonight. Bill Clark always said it's the best choir in Fort Payne, DeKalb County, Alabama, across the whole thing. It was an encouragement. So I love the choir. Well, looks like I get a good introduction. So we're just trying to get that these changes, I guess. Good to have play with us. Kids. And a blessing and a nightmare. Love, like, of course, next I was a 6 days. Somebody's been that long ago. But I'll tell the story. I remember there's a choir playing me years ago. They were hunting, I guess. They were there, you know, as kids do, they're nudging each other. We were singing, and all at once they put their hands up their ears and go like this. And Mama had to get on to funny how you remember things. Seemed like yesterday. I remember when Blake was saved, was down in doing the invitation, and back in those days, the kids had wheelies. We saw a video the other day of wheelies. You know, they run into everybody in the shopping mall, and everyone else for the wheelies. And invitation, saw a couple come down, and this little kid up here come down. I said, that kid got a shirt on just like Blake. And he got wheelies just like Blake, and it turned out it was Blake. And got saved, and, you know, baptism, my first time I baptized anybody, Blake and Ethan, I said to God, I just talked all night. And, you know, the baptistry, Ethan came down first, and because I'm a long-winded person. I don't know how long I talked, but I told the story about Philip and the eunuch and I've been baptized and all that. Ethan kept looking up at him. Finally afterwards, he said, "Papa, why did you talk so long? Why did you talk me out first?" But we got it done. So anyway, it's good to have everybody here. Good to see Blake's friend. Jacob. Mr. Long. My son don't work that well. But anyway, couldn't have them. I'll pray for Blake. I know he's nervous. It's nothing mine. So pray for him if you can.
Okay, first off, they're Heelys, not wheelies. I'm sorry for that. He's not all there sometimes. Okay. Good morning. It usually works for David. I thought it'd work for me too. Okay. So, forgiveness. This is I'm not normal at preaching, so just get used to it. I don't know what else to say. But forgive. Stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, flaw, or mistake. I need to be forgiven a lot by my friends. All right. So, I thought I'd get more laughs. Sorry. But forgiveness is a big issue. Can you still hear me? Am I still on the mic? Okay. So, forgiveness. Sorry, it all went away. I'm trying to think how I did this earlier. Okay, so I'm going to be in Matthew chapter 18, verse 21 through 35. So, where was I going with this? Everything went away. I'm sorry. I'll just get started reading. Then Peter came to him and said, "Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times?" Jesus said to him, "I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Therefore the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. And when he had begun to settle accounts, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But as he was not able to pay, his master commanded that he be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and that payment be made. The servant therefore fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. Then the master of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. But that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay you all. And he would not, but went and threw him into prison till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what had been done, they were very grieved, and came and told their master all that had been done. Then his master, after he had called him, said to him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all the debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you? And his master was angry, and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due to him. So my heavenly Father also will do to you, if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses. Okay, so you're going to get nowhere without forgiveness. If you live in burden, or you just sit there and hate someone and don't release the anger, you're going to be all bent up on angry energy towards someone, and you're not going to be able to really express your love for God like you should. Because if you express your anger towards someone, they're seeing it as, oh no, they don't get to experience the Lord like they should because of your anger towards them. I forgive often, but it's hard. It's gotten harder these past few years. I guess as you get older, things tend to get harder for you. So it's been a challenge for me the past few weeks, months, to forgive certain things, but I've been trying my hardest. And the reason this is my sermon today is because I've been dealing with this for a while, wanting to forgive, all that, but I've been so bent up on anger and resent for certain things that I just tend to look past it and don't ever think, how would they feel if I did the same thing? I don't want to be forgiven. I'm not an easygoing person. I know this. They're not an easygoing person, but you need to learn to forgive for what they've done, because if you were in the same situation on the other end, you'd be hurting just as bad as they are for wanting. How did that word? Did I word that weird? No, okay, where am I at? Like, which side am I on right now? If I'm wanting to be forgiven, I'd want them to forgive me if I were in the other shoes, right? Yes, okay. So, I've been that's the biggest deal to me these past few weeks. Hold on one second. Okay. So, last night, in the past few days, I looked at stumbling blocks. This morning, I was like, that's not been bothering me as much as forgiveness. I didn't think about it until this morning. I talked to Lynn about it this morning. Forgiveness has been on my heart more than stumbling blocks, all that. It's just mostly because I've not forgiven the people I need to, because I've been in a very, not dark place, but like modern gray, if that makes sense. I've not given my full potential to God because I've been stuck in the past, not forgiving like I should be. I've had to go back and forgive some people. I've had to say sorry to people because I'm in the wrong as well. It's a big deal to me to see when someone is so bent up on feeling sorrow or whatever just because they don't want to be, their pride is so up there that they don't want to be forgiven, or they don't want to say sorry for anything because they feel like they're in the right. But even when you are, sometimes you're not. You just need to man up or woman up. And it's 2018. I got to power to the women, right? But you got to let your pride be something that doesn't affect the way you see life. Okay, who here has seen Spider-Man 3? Okay, so we're on a good start here. You know the scene where Spider-Man and Sandman are right there where he gets the symbiote right off his suit? Does everyone follow what I'm saying? And Sandman's right there crying because he killed Uncle Ben. You know what I'm saying? You know how hard it is for the superhero to forgive something like that made him, like, his whole life be a mess? You know how hard that is to forgive? I'm sorry, some people here probably have no clue what I'm talking about. Uncle Ben is Spider-Man's uncle, Peter Parker, and he got shot. With great power comes great responsibility. Everyone following? Yeah. Okay. So he's sitting there, and I know it's just an act, but it's a serious issue. You see one person at their lowest that wants to be forgiven because that's their biggest burden of all. I know it's not a real situation because it's just some kiddish superhero. It's whatever, but it stands true to real life as well. I looked it up today, and you see his everything exposed because he wants to be forgiven. It's not easy to forgive. Spider-Man has a hard time forgiving him because that was his father figure. That's who looked after him. But he knew it was right to forgive because otherwise, if you live in the past, you're going to hurt yourself and hurt the others who are in the situation with you. But the more I realized, I'm like Spider-Man in a way, not like, but it brings a lot to forgive someone. You just got to come down to it and see, is it right with God to live that, or is it better to express it and just go ahead and get it out of the way and be friends again, or not even see them all the time, just let them know that you're past that and you love them like you love your mom, like you love your brother, your sister, whatever. It doesn't matter. To be forgiven is one of the greatest feelings. It is to me anyway. So right here I have Luke 17, chapter 17, verse 3. So watch yourselves. If your brother or sister sins against you, rebuke them, and if they repent, forgive them. If they come to you asking for forgiveness, don't be quick to anger. How'd that song go? Easy to... Hold on, I'm trying to get the beat in my head so I can get the words right. Just don't be quick to anger. Be fast to love, to learn life with them over hating. You may not think it's hate, but the more anger you build up, the more you hate. And we all know it's not right to hate. It's love and be loved. And the more time goes on, we realize the earth is becoming more of non-forgiveness, right? I see people all the time not forgiving, and they're just getting angrier as time builds up, and things are getting more tense and shredding apart. Christians as a whole forgive. They say they forgive, but do they actually forgive? I see churches tear apart because of one little incident, but no one ever sits to think, am I in the wrong? And how do they feel about this? It's normally just a one-sided in your head, and you're like, they're the wrong ones. I'm right. I'm always right about this. I know I'm right. But if you don't sit and talk it out and forgive them, even if you don't believe fully what they're saying, if you don't forgive them, there is no place for you anywhere if you're not willing to forgive someone of their debts. God forgave us through Jesus by letting us go to heaven. Not everyone is Christ-like, so we want to teach them to be Christ-like through forgiveness itself. I feel like forgiveness is the route to love, honestly. It is to me anyway. if you learn to love through apologies, through self-motivation, through all that, but if you don't forgive someone just because of something dumb and tiny, or maybe even a big problem, you forgive no matter the size. Because if God would want everyone to be happy, wants to be loved, no matter who they are. I don't care if they're the worst person ever. They should be forgiven and then see where it goes from there. You don't sit there and build up the sin inside you, because then you get farther away from God and you can't hear God anymore. I've been there, and it's hard to come out of because I'm so stubborn about it. It's hard to forgive Ethan, especially, wherever he is. It is hard. All he does is play my games all the time. He comes in there at late hours. I want to go to bed. It's hard to forgive him. He never says sorry, but I forgive him. It is so bad. But you got to learn to forgive the worst and the best situations. Even if it's not a big deal to you, it may be a big deal to them, because I go home feeling like, oh man, they're mad at me. And I'll text them and say, I'm sorry, and they're like, I didn't even think about it. If it's bothering you, or if it could bother the other person, you don't know. If it is, text them and say it bothers you. If not, we all have the capability to get on the level with someone. Now, with the technology, we can text them, we can call them, you can FaceTime them, anything. But if you sit there and live up and you don't forgive your debtors, forgive your debtors, then is there really a place for you in heaven? It's said where was it? I had it saved too. I had it. But if you have to forgive to be forgiven by God in the end. If you don't, you're living a sinful life going into heaven. You want to be forgiven, so why not forgive everyone else? Feel like you're in the place of where you want to be. I feel stuck because I'm very stubborn. I'm a very stubborn person when it comes to apologies. Even big apologies really get me, because even when I feel I'm in the right, sometimes I know I'm wrong, but if you've argued with me, you know what I'm talking about. I love to argue. Yeah. But I know I'm in the wrong sometimes. Sometimes I just love to argue, even if I know for 100% fact I'm wrong, just to get a rise out of people like my papa over here, who loves to post on Facebook Republican stuff. I love to just say stuff like, I don't mean any of it. I just think it's hilarious to see him get fired up. It is hilarious. If anybody wants to see it, meet us after church. It gets good. But I know he forgives me. We don't say it. It's just like a family bonding or a family thing. You forgive. It's kind of a given thing. But when you gain friends that don't know who you actually are and don't know if you're joking or not, sometimes you got to forgive for jokes that you don't mean, because they tend to think it's serious. I do that sometimes. I have friends that'll joke with me, and I'll find it very hard to forgive them, even though they thought it was a joke. I thought it was serious. It really hit me hard on some of the stuff, because it's an offensive thing to certain things, certain extents. But they don't realize it because they're not the same person. They're not in the same mindset as you are. But the more you tend to forgive, the more you tend to notice how easier it is for them to forgive, because you're in the same mindset as someone else that wants to be forgiven. Is that making sense? It's getting easier to forgive, because I'm noticing if somebody came to me and was serious about an apology, I'm going to forgive them no matter the stake, because I'm a very emotional person. I cry during movies sometimes. Lord forbid, I'm sorry, but I've cried during movies. I'm an emotional man, but it hits me harder knowing real life situations that can't be solved because somebody's too stubborn to take something back, to just say I'm sorry or say they're wrong. I'm not saying go lie and say, you're sorry. Be sincere in what you're sorry about, so that way they know where you stand. Because if it's an honest debate with each other, and you're just like, I don't agree with it, you just say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend your views, I just meant to state where I am, because if you can state yours, it should be a right to explain both sides. It's a dog-eat-dog world in that situation. You have to know who the audience is, who you're with. Not everyone is easily forgivable because of their pride. Pride is a very high-graded sin on earth. I see it all the time in college. I see it all the time just anywhere I go. People don't want to listen to your side. You don't want to listen to their side, but you can't sit there and just not let it happen. It's the world. You've got to deal with the world. You can't just pass it, or this Christianity thing would just be a breeze, right? You have to deal with it. That's why it's all challenges. It's all like Ninja War. What's that Ninja Warrior show? I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about? The Ninja Warrior? Yeah. What's the name of it? American Ninja Warrior. There's obstacles to get over. It gets harder as it goes. Is that correct? They each get more. So that's how I look at it. I know that's a weird analogy. A lot of people don't know what I'm talking about half the time. But it's like American Ninja Warrior. You go over one thing, you're like, okay, that wasn't that bad. It was a little difficult. But then you come to another crossroad and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. You keep going and you're like, okay, this is really tough. But then you get to the end, you're like, oh wow, how many mistakes did I make? But I still got here. You want to go without mistakes. That's not possible. You can't do that. You're going to have mistakes. Everyone has a mistake, big mistakes, whatever. But the difference between us and that game is we can go back and fix those mistakes and have the challenges easier to an extent. Like we can look back and be like, okay, it wasn't as bad now knowing I'm forgiven, or I forgave them. We're good now. It gets harder as time goes on to notice how rough it is to forgive the worst person in your life. Some of you may have that one person's like, oh wow, I'm not forgiving them. They are the worst person. They did me wrong. If you don't forgive them, you're not living the Christian life, the walk. It's a hypocritical thing to do. You need to forgive in order to be forgiven. It's a sin as much as any other thing. People just don't look at it as the same because their pride is so built up. I've been trying to break that wall down forever. The pride, all that. It's hard, but you got to work on everything. It's like a job. You got to keep working to get better at it. You got to keep working. You're not ever going to be perfect. It's just never going to happen. There's always going to be that one flaw. But would you not rather be as close to perfect as possible over not anywhere near? I would. My pride used to be, I feel like was like way up here. You couldn't tell me anything. I was on top. You say something to me, you're out. Get out of my way. Now as I've gotten out more and noticed how people are in the real world, you notice not everyone thinks the same as you. Not everything is as golden as you want it to be. But you can't stop it. I mean, you can try your best, but you know the devil's going to fight somehow. You're going to fight a battle you just can't win. Forgive it. And you got to forgive them. You can't really. Okay, this is what my dad always told me. Sorry. Choose your battles wisely. You're not going to win them all, especially with your mother. So it's like me and my mom. We argue. I'm not going to win probably any battle because she's right all the time. She's not. But don't tell her I said that. She's not here. But I notice, oh God, I'm going to get so much trouble after this. But so the pride level needs to be lowered to where you can handle forgiveness, where you can forgive. I've done people wrong in the church. I'm sorry. May not sound sincere because I'm not saying it individually, but I am genuinely sorry if I have ever wronged you. And I feel like I'm forgiven, even though if you don't say it to me and we're on talking terms or something bad happens, in my mind, if I did something so wrong to you, I want you to say it to me. I don't feel like I'm better than anyone here. I'm just as guilty as anyone of pride, of any other sin. It's just you have to come to terms with it and get on your knees and just beg for forgiveness where you are. It may not be physically getting on your knees and begging, but I have been in situations, you're all like, oh, you're just 19, you don't know what you're talking about. I have been in situations to where I just feel like my self-esteem's lowered because of something said, something done. But I know if I forgive them, I'm not going to feel as good as I did before the situation, but I'll feel a lot better than I am at the worst situation. I am, okay, in theater, a lot of stuff is said. Everyone knows I'm in theater and stuff, and that's a big part of my life. Things are said there that I can't help. That happens there. I don't agree with a lot of stuff that's said up there, but you forgive them for what they say, even though if you don't agree with it, you can't stop the whole world and say, hey, that's not right, you're wrong, listen to my way only. You just got to get over it and forgive them, because otherwise you're getting nowhere. It's a stalemate. It's like, I'm trying to think, I'm not very good at chess, but when the two kings, it's just two kings on the board. You're never going to get the other one. It's always going to be a back and forth. It's always going to be like that unless you have God on your side. Even if you don't agree with it, just let it slide. Don't let it slide per se, but don't let it build up inside of you to where you can't live a godly life. You can try your hardest at it, but it's like beating a dead horse. Is that the right phrase? Is that a right? Or am I close? That's close. It's like beating a dead horse with a stick. I get to a point, sometimes I need to be told that I'm wrong. I wish some people would tell me I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. Just no one ever says it. But I normally have to go back and check what I say, who I say it to, because sometimes I feel so bad about what I said to hurt them. I'll text them. Sometimes they're not easy to forgive, but I know I did the right in asking for forgiveness. It makes me feel a lot better. Even if they don't forgive you, you're in the right for begging, for asking. Pray about it. If it still doesn't work out, you know that was one of the things to make you a better person in forgiving others. Yes, that's right. Sorry, it's a lot of stuff's going on up here. I'm trying to think, put it all together. But my teachers in college, I feel like they're wrong all the time. They normally don't know what they're talking about, but what can I say? I didn't go to college. But I have to say sorry to some of them because I just feel so bad about calling them dumb or whatever, even though they've been doing it for years. College kid that's angry at doing work. But that's not like as bad as a close friend of mine that would ask for advice. I would not give them the best advice and something goes bad in their life. I feel awful at that point because I'm the one that did it. But that's when forgiveness is really not that instance, not that scenario per se, but like since that was a big problem for them, it makes it a big problem for me. And if I don't go out of my way to ask for forgiveness, then you're not doing anything for God, you're not doing anything for yourself. The more you pray about things to be forgiven, you're not just supposed to sit back and expect that to be worked out. You've got to work for it too. You work for it, God puts it there. You can't, it's like a pitcher standing there with the ball. You're not going to be able to hit the ball if the pitcher has it in his hands, right? You've got to go for it. You've got to throw the ball and let it come to you. That terminology is right. So you've got to let things work out, but you've got to work for them. You can't be a lazy prayer. You can't just say that, hey, this is going to work out because I prayed for it. That's how it is. You obviously pray for it, but you need to work for it too. If I pray for Japheth to forgive me on something, I'm not going to sit there and just be like, wait on him to say something, because that'll never work. I have to go to him and be forgiven. You can't sit there and let it just build up in him, because maybe he's praying the same thing and one of you has to start it. You can't just sit there and expect it to work. I'm a big person of prayer. I feel like you need prayer every day. Every time you can pray, you pray. If you don't, but you got to work. I'm a prayer and a worker. I don't feel like it's right just to pray and then expect it to all go away. Some things you can't work on when you pray, but you can do your best at that prayer, right? I pray for stuff, and I'm like, you can't just pray and expect it to happen. You've got to work for it. God is for a working Christian person. He's not for a lazy Christian. I feel selfish whenever I pray and then just expect God to do all the work. It happens all the time. I pray all the time that God does something and then get mad when he doesn't, because I didn't do anything for him. I didn't do anything for that prayer. I just asked for it. It's like me and my dad. I'll ask him for something. He's like, what did you do to earn it? I didn't do anything. So what's the point of asking if you didn't work for something of it? It's like a job. Yeah, it's the same thing as a boss and a worker. You can ask for something, but you've got to work for that. People have to work for off time. Oh, sick days? Is that right, sick days? You have to work to build up sick days. You can't just expect to have sick days right when you sign the bottom line for the job. You can't just do that. You have to work for it. It's about the same way. And in praying for it, you are forgiven through God's eyes because you asked him for his help. And when you ask for his help and work for it, you're forgiven in his eyes. Why can't you be forgiven in their eyes? If they don't forgive you, they're more stubborn than you are. Just think of it that way. You can work with them. You can't work against them. It's one of those scenarios. And then, Papa, can you come with a verse of invitation? Yeah, I'm on the ball tonight, guys. So, when someone comes to you for forgiveness, or they're in pain and they don't know what to do, pray with them. Let them be forgiven with you, not all alone. I'm one for forgiveness, being forgiven. It's just a part of me, who I am. It's hard to get into that mindset. You just got to do it. That's about all I got. Go ahead. I don't know.